What if leadership wasn't about power, control, or metrics, but how you treat people? Now, I want you to think about the best leaders you've ever worked with. What made them great? Here's a spoiler alert. It wasn't their ability to send emails at 11:59 p.m. or create PowerPoint slides with 50 bullet points. It was their humanity. And here's the thing. For every great leader, we've all experienced the opposite. Leaders who think accountability means control. Feedback that feels more like an annual performance roasting than coaching. Trust is treated as a reward, and you only get it if you prove yourself worthy by, walking on coals while reciting the company values. And we wonder why people disengage. It's not broken employees, it's broken leadership. And that's why I'm here. I'm Jim Mayer, and welcome to Work But Make It Human, a podcast where we discuss the people skills that make work, work. If you've ever wondered how to lead better, or connect deeper, or just create a workplace where people don't count the seconds until Friday at 5, you're in the right place. Here's the truth, folks. Most leadership advice focuses on results first and people second. But let's be honest. When people feel unseen, unheard, or undervalued, results evaporate faster than donuts in the break room. So how do we fix it? The idea behind Work But Make It Human is simple. Leadership isn't about control or micromanaging. It's about how you show up for your team, peers, and yourself. Because when people feel valued, they stay. And when they feel respected, they contribute. When they feel seen, they succeed. This podcast exists to break down those skills that actually make work better. We're talking about empathy, listening, emotional intelligence, the things that make people want to show up on Monday instead of calling in sick with an upset stomach. So here's what makes this show different. I'm not going to throw vague theories at you. Each episode gives you time-tested practical tools, the stuff that you can actually use. And here's how the show will work. Each episode will be no longer than about 15 minutes. Short enough for your commute, but packed with insights. And we're going to keep it short because we know you're busy. You'll hear segments on the core skill of the week, like performance management, time management, recognition. And then I'll challenge outdated practices in a segment called The Way It's Always Been Done. And we will wrap up each episode with your next move, where you will get an actionable step you can take today. And the cherry on top, every episode will have a free resource to help you implement those ideas, which you can then grab at the mfgconnector.com website. I'm going to share a little something personal here. Early on in my career, I worked under a leader who thought accountability meant control. Their coaching style was non-existent. Their feedback was usually a passive-aggressive comment or an email with every other manager CC'd. I brought up ideas I knew could help the team. And you know what I got back? Blank stares and silence. I felt absolutely invisible. So I did what most people do in an environment like that. I stopped trying. Not because I didn't care, but because it felt like what I did didn't matter. And you know what happened? Results suffered. The team became disengaged, and the business took a hit. Then I worked for a leader who didn't just listen, they actually heard me. They asked thoughtful questions and gave feedback that helped me grow, and then they showed me why my work mattered. And suddenly, I wasn't just showing up for a paycheck anymore. I cared because I felt valued. But here's the thing. I made a massive mistake when I got my first leadership role. Corporate told me, make everyone like you. Not like as in be my friend. They meant make everyone act and work like you. So I tried. I put my team into a box, expecting them to mirror my approach instead of learning what made them great. I ignored their strengths, their motivations. I didn't ask what they needed to succeed. And guess what? It didn't work. The results suffered, the relationships suffered, and the team completely disengaged. I learned the hard way that leadership isn't about cloning yourself. It's about empowering people to succeed on their terms. Let's dive into the first concept shaping the podcast, human-centered leadership. It's about putting people first, above profits, above numbers. It's not to say that results don't matter. They absolutely do. But focusing on people is how you get those results to stick. For decades, leadership was all about squeezing the most out of employees. Success was defined by profit margins, not by how people felt showing up to work every day. But those times have changed, and there's data to back it up. When you prioritize your team's well-being, here's what happens. Companies with empathetic leadership experience 50% less attrition compared to those without. Employees who feel their managers care about them as people are 40% more engaged. Highly engaged teams, often due to human-centered leadership, demonstrate 16% higher productivity, 21% higher profitability, and 41% lower absenteeism than disengaged teams. And finally, organizations that excel in employee engagement outperform their competitors by up to 202% in terms of financial performance and overall business success. It seems like a no-brainer. But what does that actually look like in practice? It's effective communication. Leaders who listen as much as they speak to build trust. It's empathy. Walking in someone else's shoes isn't just a nice idea. It's essential for building that culture where people feel safe and respected. It's being people first. And that doesn't just mean handing out pizza parties. It means creating systems where people genuinely feel supported, heard, and cared for. Of course, I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. For a long time, leadership has looked very different. That concept of the way it's always been done has meant that control masqueraded as accountability. Feedback felt like a critique session, not a growth opportunity. And trust was something that employees had to earn, and not something that leaders gave freely. Does that sound familiar to you? Yeah, we talked about all of those at the top of the show. I've been there. I've actually led there. And I'll tell you, it doesn't work. But here's the most exciting part. This podcast isn't just about pointing out what's wrong. It's about giving you the tools to make it better. And it can start today. I've created a human-centered leadership self-check, a simple resource to help you figure out how you show up as a leader. Are you truly empowering your team? Are you actually listening to the people who report to you? And are you leading with empathy and accountability? You can grab your free copy now at themfgconnector.com. Because leadership isn't about control or perfection. It's about connection and intention. And when you start leading with people in mind, that's when everything else will fall into place. Next week, we'll tackle one of the most underrated leadership skills, active listening, and what it actually is. So as we wrap up today, here's my challenge to you. If you believe leadership can be more human, if you're ready to lead with empathy, clarity, and impact, follow this podcast so you never miss an episode. Download your free resource at themfgconnector.com and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Because better leadership doesn't just improve results. It transforms how people feel at work. I'm Jim Mayer, and this has been Work But Make It Human. Thanks for being here. The truth is, you already are a leader. Now, let's make sure you're leading like it matters.